So I've taken the reference that I've found for my different body parts, and I'm focusing now on the head. I've saved my piece. And now as I make different selections, and I can use navigation shortcuts within Photoshop, like Command minus to zoom out, Command plus to zoom in, I'm just cutting out pretty precisely now this flower, which I know I want to overlap the head. So I've made the selections using the magic wand. I've gone as far as I can. Notice that I can't cut out this out of focus pink without also selecting the pinks inside. So I'm going to stick with these areas that are very distinct and separate. I'm going to keep adding on to my selection. It's a little risky because if I slip up, then I'll have to start over. But I'll explain why I'm not just erasing it in little chunks. I'm trying to really control it as I go. If you don't like the magic wand tool, you can try the quick selection tool, but to me that one's a lot more finicky. Because you can set the tolerance here, and a good default is 32. And I can add to the selection and take away with the Shift and the Alt option button. I feel pretty in control of this selection. And if you just keep hitting delete as you go, it's really easy to delete something you don't mean to delete. Or to leave areas that you didn't want to leave and you just weren't aware of. All right. Might be all I can do. I'll use this. Okay, now you'll see this broad selection. If I just hit delete, it's all gone. But then if I deselect, even with the magic wand, you'll see this little ridge around everything. In some places it's not a big deal, but it shows just this little distinction. And so I'm going to go back one step before I hit delete. Or actually, no, after I hit delete, but before I deselected. And now I'm going to hit refine edge. And if you remember, this is this really helpful tool that can push my selection and just grow it a tiny bit to take that sharp, kind of colorful cutout off a little bit. So I'm going to use Smart Radius. And it remembers my last settings, and these are pretty good settings. It's feathering half of a pixel, not much at all. I don't think I need the contrast quite so high. And I'm shifting the edge at 73% of 5.2 pixels. The only problem with this tool is it takes quite a bit of processing. Even just to show you the preview, it's still working on it. But it's going to cut into this edge. You know, it's going to cut into that blue, into that dark pink. And when I hit OK, after it's done processing, it's just a selection. But then when I hit delete, it will bite into that flower just a little bit more, and that will give me a much cleaner outline. So you see the selection just grew a tiny bit. If I zoom in, you can see that clearly. I'm not crazy about that. Let me I don't like how it went around that, and that's because of the contrast setting. So let me make sure that contrast is all the way down. And that smart radius is off, so it's just an even, for something as smooth as a flower. I just do an even growth. I can even smooth it out a little bit. Actually, I don't want to smooth it. And feathering will give you a gradated delete. Which can be nice, depending on what the texture is. All right, let's try that. Not sure why it's avoiding that edge. But you can see on this edge that slightly feathered cleaning it up is quite helpful. And then sometimes you might just have to go in and modify your selections by hand. So I've refined the edge, but now I need to subtract this little bump from it. So I don't want it to cut in that exact way. Like so. And remember, this will do it everywhere. And what I like about feathering your refined edge is you can hit delete multiple times and kind of keep softening it a little bit. So I'll get a cleaner cutout that way. Yeah, it looks very nice down here. And now all that's left are these areas that are too similar in color. Around my flower. This is where a stylus is very helpful. Remember, you can always modify your selections. With more practice, you can be more and more confident with it. Because the flower is so smooth, I want to make my strokes pretty smooth, but not cartoonish. Okay, and then on this side. Huh, not sure what happened there. Zoomed into some strange place. Okay. Now, starting with Cs6, the lasso tool now draws from the point of the black triangle, not from the point of the lasso. So you have to remember that. And it's difficult for me because I go back and forth between the versions a lot. So when I get a good selection like that, very smooth, I'll go ahead and loop around it and delete before I go to the next selection. And this is the problem with raster images, with pixel-based images. Even the smoothest curve is made up of just a bunch of square pixels. So you're kind of fighting against the nature of the grid, trying to get a nice smooth curve or delineation. That's why vectors are such beautiful digital imaging formats, because they do support the perfect curves so well. Now the other thing that's nice about doing this with creatures, kind of like it was with the landscape, when you're working with organic things, they're quite forgiving. So I can always cut into this petal a little bit to smooth it out. I'm just adding to my selection. But I also wanted to have enough variety so it looks believable. And again, not cartoonish. All right, so I've placed the flower, I've placed the eye. Now I want to place this back on top of it. How can I make that work? Let's see. I think the first thing I might try is playing with the color of the flower, because I know it works without the flower, with these two things composited together. I think actually I might want to leave that nostril in the beak. It's kind of cool. With the little hairs from the other layer coming through. It's like a hairy nostril. What's better than that? All right, and now I'm going to play with the colors of the flower so that they match a little bit, and I do that through using a few things. First, maybe color balance. Shift it, the shadows especially, to being a little bit cooler. A little greener. The highlights maybe being a bit warmer. And the midtones, looks like going a little green and cyan will do the trick. Then I can go to levels and just kind of work with the lighting. If I want it to shift overall lighter or darker, I think I need it to go a little bit darker with the lighting on this head and the lighting of that eye. And then with the saturation, I don't think I want it quite as saturated. Even shift the hue a little bit. I can also play with the rotation, though I do kind of like the way those flowers are working. I could always play with different arrangements of it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's odd looking right there. Maybe a little too odd, I don't know. Yeah, I think this is still probably the best. Maybe I'll rotate it just a little bit.
That could be an actual creature out of like a movie.
That's what we want. All right, now with this overlap, I blend it in. And I can do that in a few different ways. I can take the opacity all the way down and kind of see maybe I want these yellow eyelashes to come through. So I'm using pretty low opacity eraser just to hint at these textures. And the more I use it, the more it will cut it out. I just want to take all the best aspects. And I think I want to treat those parts of the flower, because I don't want to look too much like a flower, as eyelashes. So I'm just going to use them at the top and bottom of the eye, building on what's already there in the other layers. Just little dot erasing. Then I have to blend out these other areas. Kind of blend the textures together into the flower.